quarterly growth for 5 years, and growth over the year to December of 4%.
On this day, Friday, March 18, we come to the end of a week in which the Treasurer has told us that our economic figures are on a par with those of the good old days of the 60s. Can you remember the 60s? Even if you can't remember them, do you now feel caught up in an economic recovery? Where was the Treasurer Ralph Willis in the 60s? Is he serious about Australia today having returned to the good old days? As I remember the 60s, there was hardly any unemployment. Today, it's at best 11%. As I remember the 60s, there was no foreign debt. Today, we're swimming in it. Well, you are the economy. You are business, workers, housewives and shoppers. What is happening out there? Is it good, bad or better? Tonight, you and I talk in simple language with one of Australia's foremost business commentators, Terry McCrann. The number to ring is 1800 64 1064. I'm Alan Jones. Hello and welcome to the show. On tonight's program we're speaking to very popular... Seriously, you are talking nonsense. Now either revise what you have to say or give someone else an opportunity. Mary from Ipswich is on the line. Mary, good evening. Hello and welcome tonight. Do you believe the federal government when it says the worst is over? Are we now well down the road to economic recovery? Is that your experience of things? I want to hear from you on 1800 64 1064. But first, it hardly matters what your perspective on life is or where your interests lie. Hopefully we still appreciate a winner, especially a new face, especially a battler. Well, at Key Biscayne, Florida, about 5.5 hours ago, a 21-year-old kid from Nambour in Queensland, one of a family of 12, served notice that a new name may soon join the galaxy of great Australian tennis champions, and that name is Patrick Rafter. Until today, 46 in the world. Now, this Lipton tournament is viewed by players as at least the equal of Wimbledon. It's just that Wimbledon on grass carries with it enormous history and tradition. Yet this tournament is relatively new, but it's worth 4.3 million Australian dollars. Now, there are only 4 players left. Sampras, number 1 in the world, Courier, the former number 1, Agassi, the former Wimbledon champion and potentially number 1, and the 21-year-old Queenslander, Patrick Rafter. It was Rebecca Brown beating the world in swimming earlier in the week. At week's end today, it's Patrick Rafter in tennis. And who says he can't beat Agassi in the semis? One thing is for certain, every red-blooded Australian will be on his side. Go for it, young bloke. To win without risk is to triumph without glory. Well, every day there appears a different headline, claiming one aspect of the economy or another is on the mend. The government's told us we lead the rest of the world in economic growth, and consumer confidence is at its highest point for at least a decade. But does all this hype just coincide with a number of federal by-elections occurring now? Shortly I'll be talking with business commentator Terry McCrann on the real state of the economy. But first, this report from David Richardson. Do you believe the recession is over?
I'm not scared. I don't think so.
Not for me, personally. I don't think it'll ever be over.
There's still plenty of people without work who want work.
The headlines decried the worst is over. The recession we had to have is giving way to a new era of business optimism and consumer spending and investment. But not everyone agrees with that forecast.
So you're not making any more money than you were when the recession started?
Less.
No, I don't trust Mr. Keating for 1 second.
If we believe everything that we're being told, the recession we had to have is finally over. It's now a memory, albeit a very bad one for most of us. The federal government boasts about economic growth, 4%, the highest for Australia in 4 years, and that we're leading the Western world in economic growth. But if we are out of the recession, are we making the same mistakes that got us there in the first place?
No, I think the mistakes will be made in a different format. People have learned from the past.
Market analysts worry too much economic growth, or talk about it, will force up inflation and then force the government to tighten interest rates.
Unemployment is dreadful, business investment is flat, but there are signs of recovery and I warmly welcome that.
Have a nice day.
Consumer confidence is up. At the very least, consumer optimism is at its highest point since 1984. Some surveys even suggest its highest point in almost 20 years. Corporate Australia is also booming, with interim net profits for listed companies up 33.5%. Other indicators suggest not everything is rosy, though. Home building starts and home loan approvals have dropped away. Home loans dropped 7.2% in January, but housing finance is still 30% better than the same period last year. Despite these figures, people on the street still aren't convinced the worst is behind them.
I think it's just a false illusion that it's over. I think it's slowly starting to get better.
Yes, David Richardson reporting. Well, let's keep it simple, because there are certainly signs of improvement. But I just wonder, can there be economic recovery when more than 1 million people are out of work and our debt is 8 times what it was 10 years ago? And our business investment, and that's what creates jobs, doesn't it? Well, that's yet to get a go on. Respected columnist Terry McCrann is in our Melbourne studio. Terry, good evening.
Good evening, Alan.
Thank you for your time. I'm just wondering, in absolutely layman's terms, how can you be excited about a recovery? And I don't want to be a doom monger, but how can you be excited when there's over 1 million out of work and the debt has increased 8-fold in 10 years?
Absolutely, Alan. Let me describe in very simple terms an economic paradise which would be relevant to your viewers, and that is fundamentally near zero unemployment. That's to say jobs for anyone that wants to work, old, young, woman, male, white, pink, black, whatever their colour. Fundamentally every year rising incomes, and very importantly not having those incomes eaten away either by inflation or punishingly high interest rates. And that, as you indicated, was Australia in the 1960s.
Yeah.
Now, there's absolutely no reason why we can't get back to that sort of environment, that sort of economy, sometime in the 1990s. But what these figures that have come out this week have indicated is we're really only taking the first step, and the big question is, do we take the next step?
But Terry, are we being told the truth? I mean, every month we have this business called the current account deficit, which I hate because it actually is just debt. And it tells us that each month it's $1 billion and $1 billion, which means we're going into debt to the tune of about $60 million a day. Can we just do that forever and ever and ever and it not catch up with us?
Well, Alan, we can't do it if we're not using that money to invest, to build jobs, to build productive capacity. And that's been our problem right through the 1980s. We've essentially been borrowing from foreigners to sustain our own consumption. And that's just nonsense. And obviously, if we're going to borrow, we've got to borrow to invest. And as you said, the fundamental thing that's missing from this equation is investment. Without investment, you don't get the jobs, you don't get the productive capacity, you don't get the competitiveness that allows us to compete in that global marketplace.
But let me just take another simple issue about what's needed. I mean, if the problem is debt, and it's increased 10-fold or 8-fold in the last 10 years, and each month we're going into debt to the tune of $60 million a day. Last election there was a debate about this, and it said, well, there's too much expenditure, therefore we should tax it, and we need more savings. If we're in debt, we need savings. If they're overseas savings that we've got to borrow, isn't Australia then at the whim of foreign investors?
Well, absolutely, Alan. The starting point in this is a national consensus, a national understanding by people like your viewers that we can actually achieve these things, but we have to do it on our own merits. We have to save ourselves. We have to change the way we overconsume, we overinvest in housing, that we can't rely on foreigners to fund our future, to fund our prosperity. We have to do it ourselves, but we have the capacity to do it ourselves. Yeah. And you come back at the end of that to leadership and honesty out of Canberra, which actually tells us the state of the world, what we have to do to achieve these things.
All right, we'll leave it there, Terry, because as I've already said, you, the viewers, are the economy. You're the employee or the businessman or the housewife, or you may be unemployed. Now, are things better as you see them? That's all we need to know. Just call 1-800-64-1064 and we'll take your calls after the break.
8:30 tonight, Mystery and Suspicion.
I didn't kill Victor.
Secret lives and denial.
How many more lies are there that I know nothing about?
Murder at the Grange.
You cow.
The P.D. James Mysteries with Detective Dalgleish on Capital.
Oh dearie me. I said the biggest retailer of electrical appliances, not the retailer of the biggest electrical appliances.
Retrovision, around 470 stores.
If you've been chasing a great home loan rate, rush down to St George Bank, because now both owner-occupiers and investors can catch a home loan for only 5% per annum, capped until November this year. What a great idea, St George.
Insitect, supplier of Crop King and Greenleaf products, is proud to present this fun fact.
Good handling of cattle reduces time and labour, as well as preventing stress and bruising in stock. When cattle become frightened or threatened, their first reaction is to become immobile. They will move on when they feel at ease. In sale yards, any quick or threatening movement can cause cattle to panic and head towards a source of light or point of escape. Cattle have extremely good memories, So it is important that good lessons are taught right from the beginning. If they are moved to different paddocks or new cattle are introduced into the herd, the order is upset. This will generally cause aggression and immobility within the mob. Like all animals, cattle maintain other animals within their vision. They are basically aware of everything going on around them. When moving cattle, you should stand behind the shoulders of the animal. Follow these guidelines and you should have a safer farm and happier cattle.
Inside Tech, proudly Australian, was proud to have brought you this farm fact.
Saturday, a race of life and death.
I really need to win this one.
And the Fixer Man.
David Jenkins with Prince.
Who'll do anything to win.
Why switch horses? Money.
Mickey Rooney stars in Murder, She Wrote, Saturday on Capital.
Well, welcome back. Tonight I'm asking whether you share the federal government's confidence about the state of the economy. Do you worry about where we're heading? Do you worry that interest rates might go up? Do you feel more secure about employment? Well, let's hear from you. Terry McCran is still with me. And our first caller is Christine from Preston in Victoria. Christine.
Hello.
Yep.
Yes, I just wanted to say I've been unemployed for a number of years, and even though they say the economy is picking up, it's actually not, because I'm out there looking for a job and I'm saying, look, I'll accept a lower wage, and I'm getting looked at as if that I'm not good enough because I'm accepting a lower wage.
Christine, how representative is that opinion, Terry, of what you think the state of the economy is?
I think it's fundamentally important, Alan. She's touched on a very important point, that we don't have a labour market which actually encourages bosses and workers to sit down and create jobs in a sensible way. And part of this process, obviously, is freeing up wages at the lower end, and particularly for young people, to get into the job market, to get into the workforce. And you see what McDonald's has done very effectively at creating openings for people.
Yep.
But obviously, at the end of the day, we want to build an environment where you're not trying to screw down on wages all the time, but we are actually creating an environment where you get real wage growth and rising standards of living.
You can only pay,
obviously,
you can only pay for wages out of profit. You can only pay for wages out of profit, so of course we need profit. Norman's on the line from Queensland. Norman?
Yeah, hi, Alan.
Yep.
Terry, what you said before about honest politicians, I think you heard hit the nail on the head. Keating said the country's booming, and just because he said the recession's over, it doesn't make it so. Most small business people have had to borrow heavily just to stay afloat over the past 3 years. How long do you think it's going to take for small business just to get back to where they were, say, 5 years ago?
Norman, before Terry answers that question, could I ask you one? Are you a businessman?
Yes, I am.
What interest rate are you paying for your money?
When you talk about money, you're talking housing loans?
No, your business money.
Business finance, around 12%.
Yeah, Terry, see, it's still dear, isn't it?
It's still a very expensive interest rate when you've got inflation down at 2%. And any suggestion that rates should go up should be canned immediately, Alan, that clearly interest rates in Australia are still too high. Small business like Norman's are still burdened by debt, and they obviously got hit very badly in the 1990 period when rates went over 20%.
So are they booming now? Are they booming now?
Are they booming now?
Yeah, is small business booming? We're told
We're booming doesn't mean we are.
I think elements of the small business community obviously are booming. If you're related to the housing market, you've probably had a pretty good year. But this gets back to this basic point about what we're aiming to achieve. We seem to want to be satisfied with a very modest growth rate, when instead of saying 4%, that's fantastic, 1 year we're out of recession, 200,000 jobs, our ambitions really should be aiming far higher than that.
All right. Okay. Steve's on the line from Wollongong. Steve?
Yeah, how you going?
I'm well.
Oh, that's cool. Yeah, I was wondering, like, with the media, with it being so doom and gloomy for the amount of time it has been, do you think that could, if it was more positive, help loosen the purse strings of people and invest money, you know?
All right, Terry, are the media too negative?
A very good question, Absolutely. I think we've got this terribly negative outlook in this country. As soon as the growth rate picks up a bit, we're worried about having a bust. We're worried about growing too fast. That obviously the media plays an important part of this. But having said that, you've got to be frank and realistic about the difficult problems that we do have. Alan's mentioned the size of the foreign debt, the continuing current account deficit. We can't keep running in the red. So you've got to marry realism and honesty with an optimistic outlook.
All right, Jack from Gosford in New South Wales. Jack?
Hello, Alan.
Yes, Jack?
Terry. I would like to ask Terry how we can question the positive economic data when we have the second highest growing economy in the OECD, a 4% growth, it's patently obvious that we are at a recession. And
okay. All right, he's got the point. Jack, how can we question it? Jack says it's patently obvious we're out of the recession.
Jack, I'm not questioning those numbers. Yes, we are emerging from recession. What I am questioning is what we compare it with. We're comparing it with countries like Germany and Japan, which are still deep in recession. We've got countries to our north which have been growing at twice that rate for the last 25 years. That's the sort of thing we should be aiming at. I want to see that sort of growth rate. I don't want to say I'm not a doom and gloomster. I say we're getting strong growth. Let's sustain it and let's increase it.
But if all of that is true, which I'm sure it is, Terry, what's going to happen now when the budget's brought down? Are we still going to settle ourselves for a $10 or $13 billion deficit?
Well, again, Alan, these are some of the hard decisions that obviously have to be made. If we have a high budget deficit, inevitably interest rates will rise. It'll hurt homeowners. It'll hurt the business sector.
Yep.
Terry,
we have to make that choice.
Yeah.
I also think, Terry, that what we should be doing is to talk the economy up, and I think questions of this nature don't do the economy any good at all.
Okay, well, Jack, that's a fair point, and that's what the open line is here for you to be able to criticise what we're doing. I think Terry's point, Jack, to you is that we're just trying to tell Australia how it is, rather than politically present a picture which is advantageous to any government, whether it's the government of the day or a previous government. And when you've got billions of dollars of debt and 1 million people unemployed, we've got to be saying to ourselves, how can we reduce both of them? And I think that's the issue we're trying to address here. Juliet, hello. Juliet? Oh, you there? A quick one, Juliet.
Oh, hello, Terry. Just wondering, with the amount of real estate sold on the Gold Coast recently, should we be happy in the belief that this is a turnaround in the economy?
There's a very quick one, Terry. Does the sale of real estate mean the economy's turning round?
I think it's always the first indicator of the economy's picking up. But obviously we're not about real estate, Juliet. We're about creating real wealth, real production.
This is also small business I'm talking about.
Yes, we can't take any more, Juliet, because we'd be here all night trying to solve the problem. But I thank you for your call. Terry, thank you for your involvement tonight. We'll talk again, of course, about what is a really important issue. But we're in the middle of the by-election season, and tomorrow the South Australian federal seat of Benithan is up for grabs. 2 more federal seats will be contested in New South Wales next weekend. I talk with Barry Cassidy in Canberra after the break.
Arnold Schwarzenegger.
I'm your twin brother. Oh, obviously.
And Danny DeVito.
What is this, candid camera?
Comedy's most unlikely duo.
Way to go, Mom.
And the most unlikely twins. Sunday on Capital.
With ordinary home loans, by making regular repayments, the money you owe reduces over, say, 25 years. Some home loans allow you to pay in extra money and shorten the loan. Imagine what you could do if you could get that money back. Well, now there's options from Westpac. Let's say you get a pay rise or a lump sum. Options allows you to put more money in. And say if you need a new bathroom, options lets you draw money out. I do beg your pardon? If times get tough, you can reduce your repayments until things get better, when you can put money back in again. In fact, options will help you through life's ups and downs. And all at Westpac's normal variable home loan interest rate. Options from Westpac puts you first. For details, call into Westpac or call us on our home line.
What's inside every pack of Pal Meaty Bites that builds a healthier dog 5 ways? There's protein for a strong body, polyunsaturates for a shiny coat. There's calcium for strong teeth and bones, vitamins for bright eyes, and whole grain cereals for energy.
Come on, boys. You're getting faster every day, guys.
Top breeders recommend Pal Meaty Bites to build a healthier dog 5 ways.
Phillip Lighting Centre and Mitchell Lighting Centre have gone cheap, cheap, cheap. There's up to 40% off all pendants. Tiffany batten fix $32.95. Tiffany pendants $49.95. Exteriors in 4 colours from $19.95. 2 18-watt diffuse fluoros $39.90. 2 36-watt $52.90. 3-in-1 bathroom fan heater light combinations $139. Downlights from $9.95. That's cheaper than cheap. So hurry to Mitchell or Phillip Lighting Centre while these low prices last.
Well, here's one to make you wonder. This week, the Queensland Attorney-General ordered an appeal after a judge told an Aboriginal man who stabbed his de facto wife that he might have been jailed if he'd been Anglo-Saxon. The judge said that he recognised Aborigines, and I quote, led a different lifestyle, unquote, and had, quote, peculiar problems, unquote. Now, this fellow was charged with unlawful wounding. No conviction was recorded. He was placed on a bond and ordered to perform community service. The judge said Aborigines were placed under pressure which, quote, the rest of the community doesn't experience, unquote. And he said this bloke would have been jailed if he'd been a non-Aborigine with a similar criminal record. Women's groups have said the judge's mentality was clearly frightening. Other politicians are saying that there's one law for whites and one law for blacks, but then the judge was saying that anyway, wasn't he? I somehow feel that 1994 is going to be an explosive year in national politics. Carmen Lawrence arrives in Canberra next week for a guaranteed spot in the Keating ministry. Bronwyn Bishop is certain to follow her in May. Labor will win a safe by-election in South Australia tomorrow, and the popular former state MP Martin Evans will be off to Canberra. A former Rhodes Scholar, Tony Abbott, is on his way for the Liberals the same day as Bronwyn Bishop. And hanging over all this is the inevitable question of when Mrs Bishop will take her growing public support to the party room in pursuit of the leadership. Barry Cassidy is our man in Canberra, and he's on the line. Barry, good to have you again.
Thanks, Alan.
Barry, the by-elections, I suppose all talk about that. Are we going to get further swings to Labor or against the Liberals and reflections on Houston's leadership?
I think we'll get more of the same in Bonython. There are 5 by-elections being held over an 8-week period. We've had 2. They were both very bad results for the Liberal Party. There's no reason to suggest that Bonython will be any different tomorrow. The average by-election swing is 4%, but you get that when the status quo is operating. If there is any momentum behind the opposition, if the government is truly on the nose, then you expect to get swings of around 10 and 12%, and right now the coalition's not getting anything like that.
Yes, except that in the 2 Sydney seats, it's so blue-ribbon Liberal that Labor aren't standing candidates, yet it's blue-ribbon Labor in Bonython with a 14% margin for Labor. The Liberals are putting up a candidate. You could hardly blame Houston if they don't do too well.
Yes, but in safe Labor seats, the swings are still on. 6 years ago in Port Adelaide, when Mick Young left that seat, that was as safe as they get. And there was an 11% swing to the Liberal Party under John Howard's leadership. So it can happen in safe seats as well.
So how are all these election results then by-election results going to be read in terms of the tenure for John Hewson?
Well, so far that's all you can read from any of them. I think that and the fact that, I think one thing that is underestimated a bit is that even though here in Canberra we tend to look at dust storms all the time and perhaps exaggerate them, like the Griffith dust storm and the Ros Kelly dust storm, but the underlying political climate at the moment is really quite calm. I think by any historical context, we're really not going through political turmoil at the moment. Right. But quite apart from that, the other thing that you must interpret from this is that the Liberal Party is suffering because of the destabilisation that's going on at the leadership level.
So how's that going to be resolved? Is it inevitable that Bronwyn Bishop will challenge, and when?
Absolutely inevitable, and probably about July. They're really in a bit of a bind at the moment. They can't do anything about the leadership until Bronwyn Bishop comes into the Parliament. That's not until after the May budget, even though she'll be elected next week. And then she has to be tested. The Liberal Party simply doesn't want to panic in this situation and make a premature judgment on the leadership. They want to see how Bronwyn Bishop performs in the House of Representatives and then make the proper judgment.
Right, now in the meantime, Carmen Lawrence has got the jump on Bronwyn Bishop. She comes to Canberra next week. Will she go straight into the ministry? Any clue what portfolio?
She'll go straight into the ministry. The caucus will meet on Tuesday and there won't be any problem about that. They'll elect her into the ministry, and then it's Paul Keating's job then to give her the portfolio. I think you need to keep your eye on Graham Richardson's responsibilities. Not health, his major responsibility. I think if there was some rumour around that might happen, that would go to Carmen Lawrence. If that was to happen, that's paramount to Paul Keating saying to Graham Richardson, get on the bike and get out of town.
Absolutely.
He's really holding the other portfolio in limbo since Ros Kelly left, and that's environment and sport. And if Paul Keating doesn't want a major reshuffle, that's the simple way out.
Right, now Alan Griffiths has been cleared by a police investigation. Is he likely to come back, Ros Kelly?
Well, John Hewson will be hoping that he does. Once he gets back onto the front bench, he's fair game. But I really don't think that the Prime Minister can make that judgment. He's really asking for trouble if Griffiths was to go back at this stage with a trial pending against a member of his staff. There are civil suits out on this. It's just far too risky.
And Ros Kelly, is she temporarily gone or gone with a capital G?
Gone beyond the next election.
With great certainty, says Barry Cassidy. All right, Bazza, good to talk to you.
Thanks, Alan.
Barry Cassidy in Canberra. Barry, of course, will have more for us next week in the lead-up to the Bronwyn Bishop by-election. But coming up next, guitar whiz Tommy Emmanuel.
6:30 tonight, there's a new Grace Brothers heir.
I'm afraid it's true. Daddy!
But will it go to his head?
I feel like royalty.
Then batter up for a cricket match that'll have you in stitches. Are You Being Served? Followed by Grace and Favour tonight.
Furniture Importers, final clearance this long weekend only. Balloon back chairs remnants sacrificed from only $99. Solid teak chairs, out they go from an unbelievable $99. Where? Federation Furniture, Exhibition Park, Building F, Mitchell.
If you've been chasing a great home loan rate, rush down to St George Bank, because now both owner-occupiers and investors can catch a home loan for only 5% per annum, capped until November this year. What a great idea, St George.
It's a four-cylinder sellout at your Holden dealer, all with massive factory bonuses. Holden's most popular four-cylinder Barina model is running out. The new model Barina is coming, so every Barina in stock must go. Plus, there are massive factory bonuses on Nova. You can save thousands on hatches and sedans. The family-size Apollo also has massive factory bonuses. See your Holden dealer while four-cylinder Holdens are at their lowest prices. There's nothing quite like a four-cylinder Holden.
While the media sing the news of financial recovery, our accountants are playing a very different tune. If you're to survive the recession, they tell us, you must liquidate stock, a warehouse full of stock. Offer any price to the people of Canberra. Sell at a loss if necessary, but clear stock urgently or face closure. For Kadir & Sons, it's a question of survival. This special 4-day event at Exhibition Park must close Monday at 6. Don't miss out.
Coming up next week, two critical social issues under the microscope. We investigate the breast cancer debate and children of de facto families. Are there any winners? Now that's next week, but we leave you with an offering from Australia's finest guitarist. Tommy Emmanuel has played the traps for years, and now finally he's enjoying the recognition he deserves. Tonight, a clip from his new album, The Journey. We'll see you next week. Good night.